Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, attorney Kim Hegwood with Hegwood Law Group, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Welcome to Life Happens with me, Kim Hegwood, and my very special guest today is Amanda Bailey. And so good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
And so the cool thing about, we're going to talk about some really cool things to do, but you have a new business called Help for My Parents.
Yes.
And so I know there's a story there, so we may get a chance to talk about that. But the one fun thing that, a lot of times, we have a lot of clients that, it's time, to move them and you're like, well, where do we go? What are we looking for? So this is perfect for today. So we're going to talk about how to tour a memory care community like an expert. So because, clients want to know, how do you decide one's better than the other? So let's talk about some things. And so are activities one of the highlights of things that that you encourage people to ask about in how they engage with that loved one that's in a memory care facility?
Most definitely. A little background, I actually used to run a memory care community, and this was a question that came up frequently. And it would be like, oh, my dad doesn't like to do anything. He just wants to sit and watch TV. And then you'd be amazed the next thing you know, he's playing cards with a couple of friends that he's made, or he's playing Rummy Cube or something along those lines. And the families are just amazed because he's gone from a setting where he was kind of isolated without peers around in most cases to now a setting where the focus is on engaging him. And that's what you're really looking for when you come to a community. How do they go about assessing that individual to make the most of their day and keep them engaged through the day? Because I can tell you that the more you engage them during the day, the better they're going to rest at night. So if they're sundowning or anything like that, it actually can help alleviate some of that without going to the automatic go-to of medications and so forth. So it's a real important factor to understand how that particular facility that you're touring goes about doing that for each individual, because everybody's different.
So is there better activities that, if somebody says these are our activities, these are things we do, are there better activities and maybe not so good activities? I mean, is there, I guess I'm asking, is there kind of a definition of activities that there are better things that someone needs to be asking about?
Well, yes. And a lot of companies, the bigger facilities, have kind of caught on to this and are trying really hard to develop plans that are real engaging. I work with one facility that it's an independent living, assisted living, and memory care. Mm-hmm. And the independent living residents, actually, they do a lot of things with the assisted living and the memory care residents. They actually almost see it as a mission for themselves. It's all volunteer if they want to do it or not, which, in and of itself for the independent living resident is an activity too, because they're staying engaged and doing something that they're passionate about. But they may do Bible studies with them on Saturdays or Sundays or something. And that's, that is geared towards blending that community and doing something that's outside the box a little bit. And that's really what you have to look for. You have to look for places that can be creative and, just kind of look for the individual needs of that person, because not everybody's going to want to play bingo. That's just all there is to it. Not everybody's going to want to do flower arranging, that comes with the territory. You can offer those kind of things, but, also have to understand that you're going to have to offer different things for different people because they have different needs and they have different likes. So asking how do you cater to that when you're touring a community, I think is real key, because if they have a good answer for that, then they're likely going to Do they do a history on your loved one? Do they go back and say, when they were in their 20s and when they were in their 30s and 40s, what kind of activities did they engage in? What did they like? What did they dislike? Some places will do like a life history type assessment on each individual person that moves in, so that they can kind of zero in on developing something that's specific for that person. And that's real important from a standpoint of, keeping them engaged.
And so I'm an avid reader, so
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see what my kids tell somebody one day about what kind of fun things I did, because my life I was working grandkids, and so somehow I don't think that correlates. And so,
well, but maybe perhaps it's more like you may be starting to lose that ability to follow the word on a page, but could you do a group, reading a book, a group book study? You might be able to do that with somebody leading it the right way. And that might be real beneficial to not only you, but maybe 2 or 3 other residents that live there as well.
Yeah. So let's kind of shift gears a little bit and let's talk about one of my favorite topics, which is food.
Oh,
we talk to clients a lot when they're, touring facilities. I tell them, for God's sakes, go during a time they're going to serve a meal and ask to eat.
yes.
Because there are some places the food's better than others. And if you don't get a good meal that day, you just need to turn and walk away, because you may not get a good one the next day.
Yeah.
And so what do families need to know to ask when it comes to food and how all that comes into play?
Yeah. So with seniors specifically, food can be a big hot button. They look forward to each meal. It's kind of the highlight of their day throughout the day. They tend to, they anticipate it, and they look forward to it, and they want to, it's not only obviously a meal that provides nutrition, but it's also a social event for them. They're sitting maybe at the same table with the same group of people that they see, 3 times a day. So it can be a big hot button issue if it's really, really bad. If it's a bad situation, you're going to hear a lot of complaints from mom or dad if it's really bad when you move them into the facility. So I agree with you 100%. Go while there's a meal being provided. Usually lunch tends to be the biggest meal of the day, just because when you have to worry about memory care residents, some do sundowning and you don't get as much nutrition in them. So lunch tends to be the biggest meal of the day, but go and ask to have a sample plate or something like that, or even sit down and dine with the residents and see what the experience is all about. But there's some things that people forget to ask, things like, hey, mom has always been a late riser. She gets up at 9:30 every morning. It's been her lifelong habit, but she likes to eat breakfast at 10 o'clock. Can that be accommodated on a daily basis? Some places can accommodate it as a one-off. But if it's mom's lifelong habit, you ask the question before you go in, because that's important. She needs that nutrition to maintain weight and health and all the other things. But if let's not go waking her up at 7:30 every morning when her lifelong habit was to sleep until 9:30, just because we can, we have to put a plate in front of her at 8 o'clock. That's not okay. But also things like, can you accommodate diabetic diets? Can you accommodate heart healthy diets? Can you accommodate soft foods, pureed foods, things like that, if it's necessary for your loved one? Those are all real important things to know going in.
So is it appropriate to ask about, staff, how well they've been trained, or background checks or drug test? And because I know the trend for like drug testing is to say it's okay to smoke marijuana, so people seem to be more inclined to say that's okay. So what can a family ask about, the staff?
So in the state of Texas, when you publish your policies and procedures, you have to follow your policies and procedures. Sounds pretty simple, right? But that means every company could have different policies and procedures. So really it's about following your policies and procedures. So when a background check is done, is it national? How far back do they allow things. I think in your mind, if you're touring a facility and you say, do you background check your employees? And they say, oh, certainly, of course we do. Well, what does that mean? I mean, does it mean they only go back 7 years? Does it mean they only do Harris County? Do they, or do they do a national background check and they go back 20 years? There's a big difference between all of that. And as transient as our society has become, somebody could move here from out of state 6 months ago. And no, they don't have a record in Harris County or even Texas, probably. But that doesn't mean they didn't have a record wherever they came from. So just asking those questions. And as long as they're following their policies and procedures, they're in line with the state of Texas's guidelines for how they're doing it. And that is true for drug tests as well. If they say we drug test at start of employment, and if there's an accident, and that's it, we don't do random drug tests or anything like that, then if they've done that, then they're in compliance. That may not be, I'm not saying it's good, bad, or indifferent. I'm just saying ask the question. If it's important to you to know what the policies and procedures of the building are, just ask the question, because they're in compliance with the state of Texas if they follow their own policies and procedures.
Okay, that's good to know, because I did not
You
realize.
you automatically assume it's the same for everybody, but it's really not.
Wow, that's new. That's good information. So, does it matter? Does it matter how the facility is laid out? How easy is it to get to things?
Yeah, with memory care specifically, I think that is real important. You can have roaming behaviors that if the flow of the building takes them around in a circle, they're never going to go to a dead end and get frustrated with a door that won't open or try to go into other people's rooms. And if the flow isn't, takes them on a track, so to speak, it really helps with that, keeping them from trying to elope the building. They may not even be trying to elope. They just see a door. I'm going to go out here, I don't know where this door goes, but I'm going to go out this door. And then all of a sudden they're in the back parking lot and everybody freaks out because the alarms are going off. But, if the flow of the building can help alleviate some of that frustration, then it makes it easier for the resident. Handrails, I think, are real important. Places to stop and rest along the way, because some people really struggle with, weakness and strength and needing and getting tired a little bit easier. We get older, our knees hurt sometimes, and things like that. And they probably took off without their walker because they don't remember that they use a walker. So, having places for them to stop and sit down, little benches in the hallway, can be very helpful, to the resident. The outdoor environment too should kind of mimic that, some kind of walking path that allows them to circle back around, and access to the outside is real important. I think Houston's blessed with some really warm weather in the summer, but we have some really nice, like today, for instance, we have beautiful weather. And if you were, it's important for them to get out and enjoy it when, sit on a patio or roam the backyard area or the patio area. So those kind of things to look for in a community, I think, are important for whether your mom roams today or not. I think it's still important for them to have that feeling. I worked for a building one time, and we couldn't figure out at the entry of the building, there was a kind of a tile inset, in the wood floor, for decorative reasons. And we would have a resident go over and like poke their toe on top of that tile, and then they would back away from it. And I went over and I asked her, I said, are you worried about stepping there? She said, no, it's water. It's water. It for her visual, that's what she was experiencing. And she looked at it as water. And the next thing I knew, the owners of the building were tearing it up and just putting in wood floor. It's like, Okay, we've just really made it worse for her. So, and if one person does it, probably another person would, catch on to it. It would probably be a problem eventually, but you never know what's going on with the absorption of their environment around them and how their brain processes it.
So speaking of how brain processes things, let's talk about some medical stuff. How important is it to have good medical care at the facility?
Yeah. So many communities will have physicians and or their nurse practitioners come into a community to offer that as an option. Um, I know this. Medicare guidelines say you can choose whoever you want to be your provider. And if you want to still go take mom out to her doctor that she's gone to for 45 years, then by all means, still take her out. A lot of facilities will offer that in the community as it does, sometimes people that advance with dementia and that sort of thing, mobility becomes an issue, and taking them out constantly becomes really hard. And doctor may not be willing to come in and see her in her facility. So they offer that option there. If those things are important to you, ask about them. Ask to meet them. Talk with them. Don't sign up with somebody you don't know anything about. I mean, you wouldn't do that with a regular doctor. You'd research them, look at their Google reviews, whatever. But that should be something that you should be able to do. And do they have, and this is one thing that catches people by surprise, in assisted livings, which is how memory cares are licensed in the state of Texas, that there is no regulation that says a nurse has to be in the building. Like, you could operate day in, day out, and never have a nurse in the building. There has to be, I know exactly. In order to pass medications, there has to be a delegation of that responsibility from an RN to and has oversight for the caregivers to pass the medications. And there's a policy usually laid out by the company of how that happens. And as long as they're following their policy, then they're in compliance. But there is no regulation that says that there has to be a nurse in the building or even employed by the building individually. So most places will have an RN that does oversight on the medications, does all the training of the med techs and how they pass the meds, because it's under their license. It's their responsibility that that's done properly, and they should be auditing those med passes and that sort of thing. Most communities will also employ a daily nurse. If that RN isn't a part of the daily function of the building, then they'll hire maybe another RN or an LVN, to oversee the care going on. But there is no regulation that says you have to have one in the building.
Wow.
So,
and I know that. And so
Yeah.
see, I'm learning all kind of good stuff
I
today.
know.
So let's get down to the thing that's really important to a lot of people. So cost. How do you negotiate a good deal? And is negotiation even possible?
Oh, it's very possible. It's very possible. The worst they can say is no. So you ask for it. One of the things that I do really hard when I'm working with a family is I look at cost, location, and care. Let's line up those three things. And if we can fit all of those in the bucket, then that's a great option for your family. Now go and see what you like about them. Ask these questions that we've talked about, tour it, really get to know the people that are in the building, because that's what sets it apart. The residents and the staff, that's what sets that building apart from the next building. But, costs are, they're going up. Recently, there's been lots of communities that have had 8, 9, 10, 11% increases due to inflation, due to staffing costs and food and fuel and everything else that you need to operate a building. So that is going up, but that's not to say that they won't, cut you a deal perhaps on the community fee, or maybe they're running a special this month where it's $500 off for 3 months. Well, that's $1,500. That's actually, a pretty decent amount of money, but you just have to ask the question. I usually, when I'm working with a family, I ask the question before I even put that building's information in front of my families. But it's worth discussing and asking the question. It never hurts to ask. Is my philosophy on it. Just ask. Because if they think that you want to move mom in next week, they can usually find you some kind of deal.
Perfect. And
Yeah.
so this has been great. And so tell our listeners how they find you if they want some help, getting mom or dad moved.
Oh, thanks for asking. Yes. Help. My website is www.helpformyparents.com, and it's HELPFORMYPARENTS.com. And my name is Amanda Bailey. And I am Amanda Bailey at helpformyparents.com. Amanda is AMANDA BAILEY at helpformyparents.com. And my phone number is 832-465-7845. That number comes right to me. So if you need anything, or if you questioning, is mom in the right place right now, and should we look at other options for her, I'm happy to explore that with you.
Perfect. And so this has been fantastic, Amanda. I'm so glad you've been on the show today.
And let me add, my services are completely free to the families. The building that you choose pays my fee. So I'm your advocate. I don't care which one you choose. It makes no difference to me whatsoever. I want to put in front of you the places that are right for you and your family needs. So, and I've been that family member before. My mother had Alzheimer's. It was a very shocking time for my family. And it really drives my passion for what I do today, for sure.
Perfect. All right. Thanks for being on the show today, and you have a great rest.
Thanks, Kim. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcast as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.